Hello and welcome back to Dev Game Club, a weekly podcast in which two veteran game developers look at games from the past to discuss their relevance and impact today. I'm Brett Duville, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, a man who, putting the faded photo in his pocket, dismounted his camel and felt the gods smiling upon him.
Tim Longo.
Yeah, I just went with another Spelunky possible intro to introduce the podcast this week, because this is our third and final episode on Spelunky. I'm not going to put Tim through it anymore, although I hope this becomes a lifelong project for him as well as for me. We'll see if that happens. Now he's got you got that Steam Deck. You wake up in the morning and be like, hey, you know what? I'll do the daily every day for the next however many days it takes to get to 1,200 hours or whatever I'm at. Anyway, so sir, you are yeah, go.
No, I was going to say that opening, to your point about the opening, that opening song, once the title screen hits in,
ba, 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 ba.
It's very good. Yeah. It's like it's like they found the right combination of a Nintendo version of an Indiana Jones feeling thing, so it's still like playful and still like jovial and like platformery or something, and Mario like, but it also has adventure feeling to it, and he's holding the torch and he's got his hat on and his funny nose, and it's very good.
It is very good. Yeah, it makes me a lot of the soundtracks for the levels have, and most of them have multiple potential soundtracks, because this is a run-based game with a lot of randomization. Why not also randomize the music? So they all tend to have like little variations, but the deeper you go, they have more. I almost want to say more. I mean, they're still clearly electronic music, but they do feel somewhat more organic to me the deeper you go, like the further away you get from civilization, I guess, which I think is cool. I mean, I think there's probably alternate tracks in each section I'm not thinking of that are kind of that way, but I just kind of think of like, as you get down into later levels, there's more kind of
more
sounds.
thematic. Yeah.
Well,
I think they're all, I feel like, so I did finally get to, every episode I've gotten to the farthest I could get to was the next world type. And I do feel like they're all very distinct in every way, really, other than obviously the consistent rules that he has. But the music is always very fitting in general too for each of them. It feels jungly, feels mine-like, feels like cold kind of, but it's still got that kind of platformery kind of feel to it. I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah.
They're always playful, I mean, your movement, you don't want to be too serious.
Yeah, your movement mechanics are all the same. It's just, well, how about if the challenge were this, like the jungle with more vines and spikes and piranhas and whatever, versus the ice caves with more of the with the bottomless abyss, where every step really counts. You definitely need to know where you're going as you're going down. And then I would say with the ruins, it's more of a how would I even describe that? It is more of a
I'm really interested to see that.
It's sort of like what the enemies are like, I think, are a big part of it, and how they change the feeling of it. And then, of course, hell is like, fire and spikes everywhere and all kinds of undead. And
if there's a game that deserves a hell level, it's definitely this one.
Yeah. So, definitely has a totally different feel for each kind of biome in terms of what the challenges are, and then being able to use your same set of verbs to address them is pretty cool. I mean, that's any game that has that kind of variety of locations, even AAA, whatever, have to achieve that as well. And it's all about the level design to make that happen, and make it work. So a lot of the like consistent rules between the levels, like, you know, the drop distance, which is something we talked about last week, right? I mean, that's the levels are still constructed with that drop distance in mind, just like you would do a Prince of Persia level where it's like, well, I know how far he can jump, like, so you build the jumps in
Yeah.
that way, or, you know,
Metrics.
Tomb Raider or whatever, you know, same thing.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. Procedural metrics is like it's a whole nother kind of thing that is really exciting to
yeah,
see in this game, the way that he did it. Yeah, because to that point, since we talked last week and you're giving me more pointers, like I was always, if the floor was far enough down to where I had to actually look down to see it, then before I was always like, well, I'm going to take damage if I jump down there, but I kind of have to. Maybe I don't have a bomb to go down the direction. But as long as it seems like metrics wise, as long as you grab hang on to the edge and drop down from the hanging state, you shouldn't take damage most of the time. Sometimes you'll need to air steer to a little
yeah,
platform, but it's always
yeah.
pretty clear. It seems like so. It just kind of me being a designer, not a programmer, it boggles my mind about sort of the programming gymnastics that are happening to always make sure that that's foolproof.
Yeah.
Pretty
Yeah,
cool.
I'm sure I mean, honestly, it's probably just keeping track of like distance traveled and how many squares that is before you hit, you know, like I'm sure it's actually not that complicated. Though it might feel really complicated. And because it's pixel art and everything, everything is kind of probably pixel precise, right?
Mm.
So you literally know exactly how many pixels, you know, between where you started and where you ended, and you can make that distinction. I would guess, you know, that's a guess,
Hmm.
but that's to me how I would naively. That's probably how I would do it. You wouldn't do it like based on anything like velocity, because actually he reaches a terminal velocity really quickly.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah,
I feel
that
like
would break a lot.
his fall distance, his fall speed rather, might even be constant, right? So you can't use that. You know, so you basically have to use distance metrics more than anything else. So,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, but I mean, since you already brought up the hanging, that is, we might as well get the dislike out of the way. You mentioned in pre-show that the hanging is a dislike for you.
Yeah, I mean, most half. I don't know. There's a good percentage out there that obviously I do like it because I'm having
You're
worked
gonna
on
say you
games
don't
like
like it when you die? You know, I don't.
well, it's a lack of. I don't think it's necessarily the game's fault entirely, in that I think I just haven't learned what to look for all the time.
Mm,
But I'm a third person action adventure kind of fan. I've worked on them before, so the concept of giving that kind of extra room to maneuver flexibility for the player, I really like it in this game because and there was a little bit of it in Fez too, but in Mario doesn't hang on ledges. There's a lot of platformers that don't really choose to give you that depth. So I really appreciate it for that reason. And like I just said, I do use it to help myself. But the example that I'll give that frustrates me often is say the floor is only one square below the ledge
hmm
and I'm standing on the floor, or I have jumped into this little one by one, basically square, character size, one by
Right,
one
right. Yep.
square, and there's ledges in front of me and behind me. And I've tried to jump into that. This is the easiest example, but it happens all the time in other places that are more complex. And I'm actually hanging on the ledge when I
hmm
jumped over there
hmm
because of just the trajectory of my jump. But if I look quickly at my character, I can't tell that. It looks like I'm standing. Like the difference between me hanging and the difference between me standing on the ground in that case, because literally the ground
I
is
see.
right at
Yeah.
my feet. The ground's right at my feet.
I mean,
I'm just
that's a fair gripe, because if you have the glove, the climbing glove, the green glove, I don't
oh
know if
yeah,
you
and I'm
right.
still not good at that because
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, the thing is that you might fall into a space thinking you are able to run and have just that split second where it doesn't respond to you running. Say
Exactly.
you drop next to a tiki trap, You know,
I
yeah,
have
yeah,
experienced that with the glove too. Yeah, where
yeah,
you're like, am I stuck?
yeah,
Should
yeah.
I?
I've
And so,
I've been killed by the ghost. I've been killed by so many things
uh-huh.
from this
Yeah.
same issue. So yeah, I get that. I was wondering where you were going with the dislike, but now I totally am like, oh yeah, I could totally see that.
It's the lack of clarity
Yeah,
of
it's
whether,
a little
what
unclear.
state I'm
Yeah,
in, and what I end up doing when I realize I'm actually hanging, even though my feet are touching the ground, is like I panic and spam
hmm
to get up, but then at that point, I'm probably putting myself in harm's way to what I was trying to do originally and jump into that hole to begin with,
yeah,
And it comes to your point, it comes up with the tiki spikes all the time. It comes up with the glove for sure, because I've only gotten the glove a handful of times, so I haven't had a lot of practice with the glove. But it's like I'm trying to get up a wall. The other thing about all of the abilities, because I'm still so early in my Spelunky career, is that I forget I have like the
yeah,
game is so dense
yeah,
just
yeah,
at its basic level that I'm still learning that. You add
yeah,
in a cape or a glove or
yeah,
jump boots or whatever,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it's
Being able
like
to jump one extra square. Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like I
yeah,
forget. Like I'm like
yeah, yeah.
so it's just like
That
exponentially.
definitely that also takes a while to get over. You know,
Sure, yeah,
there's a point at which you're just like you just like shift mental states to like, okay, now I'm playing it as if I
right,
have this and this, right? And it's just like,
right.
it's like any,
No,
um,
it's a time thing for
yeah,
sure. I
yeah,
know it is. Yeah,
it's like any, it's even like looking at some of the sort of third person 3D action games. It's like, oh, I have a huge sword now, therefore my wind-up's gonna be forever. And like you can't go on the basis of like you have to kind of get into that state of just knowing how long that is, and not
oh no,
like,
no, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah. So it's just very
Well, I
similar
mean,
to that.
you did a
But
good job at avoiding saying the title,
I
but
did,
good
yeah.
job, good
Well, I
job.
was trying not to say that one. I was like, let me think of another example. But then I was like, I don't want to go into the Final Fantasy game I'm playing because we already talked about that enough today. Or was playing. So
Well, but again, those the Souls games are a good example in that the weapon. I think you make a good example on the weapons.
yeah,
It's just the one caveat there is that other than obviously drop rates in that game, um, you're much more you have much more agency about what weapons you're going to use when.
oh
Here, it's
sure,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
the run may or may not give you the
yeah,
glove.
yeah, yeah,
I really may want to practice the glove, but I may not get the glove today at
yeah.
all.
Right, right,
So and that's just like a time, right? It's just
yeah.
the rigor of it all. So I appreciate that, but yeah, there's just been some frustrating times, and I'm not sure if there's a subtle state there that I'm not seeing and I haven't learned yet. But
I mean, if you're
it
not, I'm not
feels,
either, and I'm a little
yeah.
further in my Spelunky career.
So if you're also still
Yeah, it still
sometimes
happens to me, occasionally.
unclear, yeah,
It's
yeah.
pretty
So,
it's pretty rare now, but it's more because I avoid it, I think. If I'm in a case where I'm worried. I mean, one of the things that I'm in now, this far in, is like I don't panic ever.
yeah, that's the key.
Right. And I think that like so I'm now Clint at the end of uh what is it for what the hell is that? I love that movie. Uh
Unforgiven?
Unforgiven.
Yeah. Okay.
Where
I was like,
he
which
doesn't
Clint are you talking
where
about? And
he
then
doesn't lose it at the end,
yeah, yeah,
and he's very calm where everybody else is, panicking. And because
yeah.
he talks about that earlier in the movie. If you just kind of keep it together, you'll do a lot better. So it's it's
Yeah, that's a
I'm
good
definitely
point. No,
there.
and I can see that about this game that I see, and it's it's the game that shall the series that shall not be named. It's the same thing there too.
Yeah,
It's
you
like
already did. So
yeah, well now I'm going to try to avoid it again, but again I don't like to point out pick on people too much, but in a positive way we talk about Kyle a lot, and one of the things that we've talked about on stream both on his and and when he comes to mine or whatever, and we talk about it together as a group. He puts a heart monitor on
oh,
most of his streams.
that's hilarious.
Um, oh, you didn't know that? Yeah, yeah.
Oh no, I haven't seen that. I've dropped in occasionally,
Yeah.
he's very early in the morning for you. You probably never get to see him.
No, yeah,
play.
not very often. Sometimes I'll pop on. Mainly, it's a lot of it is because I didn't want to watch his Hollow Knight stuff because I was playing it.
Oh, right.
But I'm at the end now, so I could do it. But yeah, I miss it usually. But even for the charity, he had it on there. The point being is like his point, and Calamity and others have brought this up. Is like it's fun to watch that because as Kyle is speaking for his community of people who play games the way he does, because he's not alone. To your Unforgiven point, it is all about controlling your emotions, because as soon as you panic, Hollow Knight is a perfect example, Souls, then it's not gonna happen. So to watch his, everyone wants me to put a heart monitor on mine as well when I play those games on stream and my my meter would be all over the place.
Yeah.
And you can tell, like if you were to watch it, you can tell when someone's going to fail. Most of the time because you can see them panicking.
I mean, you can definitely, when I was playing, I just mentioned this Final Fantasy game. I was playing against this difficult boss. I realized I was getting, close to beating it and then failing because I stopped really watching, because I was so close to beating it that I would miss a tell, or whatever, and that's when you're in danger, right? Is when your excitement overtakes you and you've moved past. You're no longer in the moment. You're now living in the glorious future of success, and that immediately leads to failure. So
there's that one sliver of health left.
Like I said, doing the Spelunky daily, it's the only thing I can do. And that also means I can't be thinking ahead of about, even Spelunky, never mind my day. I can only be playing what's right in front of me right now, which is the thing I like about it. It's really kind of my meditation every day.
Yeah, I can see it. And that's a very special thing about it, for sure. A game that consumes you that much and can allow you to forget about, games are escapism for most people anyway. And lots of other reasons, but that's one of the big ones, I think. And whether it's meditation or escapism or whatever, but you want to be consumed and kind of like, just focus and disappear, forget about your worries, whatever,
your trouble and your strife.
So that was a segue that I just lost.
Well, that's all right. I mean, we had come from your hanging, platform, and not reading. But part of what you had mentioned in there was, rigor again, and that was another topic that you wanted to kind of revisit, maybe because you've seen more of its application, I guess, because you've seen more levels or areas.
No, that is a great segue to that because. So I've been more consistently trying to play the dailies, which I love. So that's one side of the rigor. And I think a really, really brilliant addition to the game because when I play the dailies, there's a sort of, for me, and I'm sure it's for you and for everyone or a lot of people, there's a sort of freedom to it because in a way, like I know I only have one shot, and it's kind of like come what may. So there's much more of a,
to be fair, every other time you've played, you've only had one shot.
No, I know, but there's something about the fact that I can go and start immediately. Right. I don't know.
I know what you mean. There's a couple beats afterwards of like quitting out, seeing the leaderboards, moving on, etc. Yeah.
Well, there's like, because of the finite, the not just the one run. Well, I think because it's the big difference is this level is a seed.
Yeah.
That is out there for others to play.
Right.
And all the other ones are completely procedural and nobody's even knows I'm playing them, kind of, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, I can just I can get on the endless cycle of replaying the regular adventure mode as long as I want to. But with the daily, I only have this, right? And it's going to be this amount of time.
The only time you can select that from the menu today, for sure.
Yeah, it's very special, I think. And so there's that side of the rigor because I kind of can let go and, I kind of assume I'm not going to get that far, but you just never know. And it's kind of fun to just have this sort of freedom, I guess, or release. But on the other side, one I've been appreciating uh, the shortcuts, even though you've definitely convinced me that I have to be cautious with those because you do need to build up gear and money and hearts or whatever you're trying to do, resources in the so by doing a full run. But I've fully adopted that I'm not playing very long at a time. I'm playing short bursts,
Yeah.
but it is very much this rigor and practice and like doing reps with exercise or something. And I don't know if I've really ever had that in a game before. I've never experienced. I'm sure there are those out there. Kind of did it a little bit with multiplayer games. I've become obsessed with like competitive games in the past, like Quake or something. But it's still not even the
Yeah.
same as that.
One, I would
Um,
say, if we ever played fighting games in the way that
yeah,
deep fans of them play them, like that is a big part of those
totally.
games, is getting the muscle memory down of to take the thought out of, to take the intervening steps between I want to do this and my hands are doing making me do this, right? Because in Spelunky, I'm thinking, oh, I need to get down to there, and then I'm already doing it, and I'm not actually thinking about how I'm doing it. I'm just doing it, right? It's like when we drive cars. If you've been driving a
Mm.
car for any kind of time, you just drive, like you back the car out of the space. Exactly, like you can't even tell people what you're doing to do that. In fact, you ask people like, how do you pull backwards out of a parking space and drive, and people won't be able to tell you, well, I turn the wheel. They'll forget steps that they actually do. This is a true thing. This has been
Yeah,
tested, right?
try teaching your child to do that.
Yes,
It's like
well, yeah.
it's like, it's
We've all taught
exactly.
or
Well,
been taught, and but
right.
there comes a point, like basically where we say muscle memory for this, but it's like it's really just unconsciousness of
Hmm.
that. I'm learning to draw. I've been learning to draw for a while now. I'm now starting to get to the point of not having to think about the what I'm going to draw, like the actual mark that I'm going to make on the paper and how I'm going to achieve that mark. It's more just, oh yeah, I'm thinking about the shape I'm trying to create, and the hand just does the thing. It's like your handwriting. It's not like you think, oh, I'm going to draw an H, and you think, okay, line and then line and then line. You just draw an H, right? There's no
Right.
intervening steps, right? So I'm trying to find other physical examples, that
Hmm.
we,
Those are
but
good.
and that's true of any game that has sort of repeatable skill tests in it. But this one feels kind of extra. I mean, because I guess that's part of why it's a meditative thing for me, is because I am to that point. The challenge is just in focus and execution today, and I fail way, way more than I succeed on the daily. So
Yeah.
I would love to be good as a decent professional baseball player hitting at the Spelunky Daily. I'm not even close.
Yeah, that's a good point. I wonder if maybe I will seek out some streams for people who are considered really good at this game because I'd really be interested to see people play on a different level.
Yeah,
But the funny thing about it, which could be a segue to talking about the book in a bit, but
yeah, sure.
the funny thing about that is that the construction of the game and the consistency of the rules for all entities in the game. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are people who are masters at the game, but there's also a side of me that's like, sometimes you're just not going to be able to control what's going to happen. It's
Right.
like
Yeah.
it's just there's enough of chaos theory in there where you're just like, yeah, there's nothing I could have done there or whatever. No matter how good
I
I
mean, I
am.
don't know. Whenever I am in the top 10 of Spelunky, I can see who are the people at the top. The top 1, 2. It's always the same people.
Really,
So
really,
yeah.
yeah,
There
yeah,
are people who are still playing the daily today, who are just that good, and
yeah. Well,
they
I'd
never
like to
fail,
see. Yeah, I'd
and
like
they
to see
use.
how.
I don't know if they stream it. Like I haven't looked for years for a streamer, but to play it. But yeah, it's Yeah, it's definitely a thing, for sure. That there are people who are just that good. I mean, that's that's true of a lot of games. I'm just I've never been physically adept at really much of anything to that kind of level. My skills are really mental skills, right? And uh, I mean, I was not the greatest piano player. I was not the greatest runner or whatever. So I think that sort of level of anything is kind of beyond me. But that's why I tend to seek out individual pursuits, not measuring against anybody but myself. I'm not out there to race anybody.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's one nice thing about this game too, is that because it is run based and because it's structure, roguelike, procedural, all those sorts of things, like a really pure roguelike in a platformer, um, you know, suit, which again is maybe a topic we can hit about the book, but because he talks about that too. But it's nice for it to. There's the dailies, but of course I don't have many friends playing it other than you, so it's like it's just comparative to that.
yeah,
But it is really kind of like you against yourself.
yeah, yeah,
It's like it's such a consistently designed and built rule set for a game that it's very rare for me to never feel like super pissed off when I die,
yeah,
because I'm like, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense that just happened. I
yeah,
guess
yeah, yeah,
it's like, and usually I'm like blaming the game for something. It's you never want to blame the player as a developer, right? It never should be the player's fault. But it's really hard for you to get a game to a place where the player doesn't easily find a way to fault the game, for a failure. So it's really, yeah, it's really, and it'll hit one of my takeaways about sort of the physics, how physics can help people forgive things that because of the chaos of it all. But anyway,
yeah, yeah, for
getting
sure.
ahead of myself. Yeah.
No, that's all right. Let's indeed turn. You've teased it a couple times already about the book, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit. I'll try to remember, but this is because it's been several years since I read the book. I do remember what I remember primarily is his sort of both conversational style. This he's writing as if he were responding to an interview with people who elicited good sequential questions, I guess. And then just like the number of kind of topics and detail he goes into about like how he decided or approached various things.
Hmm.
But like specific details are kind of lost to me. I kind of have basically a vibe, I guess is what I'm saying. um what do you've read, you said about 40 pages. um what are you taking away from the book?
Yeah, I didn't get to finish it. Bouncing around to things. Definitely a shout out to Artimage, one of our listeners
Oh
and
yeah, i
community
should
members.
i
And
should also shout him out for
oh yeah, you should
correcting
maybe hit that
me.
first. Yeah.
Yeah, correcting me on the last week. I said that I didn't think there was a way. Well, it's true that I didn't think there was a way to drop a rope like from your height down, but there is. If you crouch and get up to an edge, it will go to the next square over that you're facing and shoot down from that point, which I think is actually in a picture in the tutorial. Maybe there are those pictures that kind of show how the game works, but it's been so long since I've played the tutorial, and it has been. I mean, it's not a skill I've ever really felt I need in the game, so I like totally forgot about it. This happens to me all the time. Games with a lot of mechanics, I will miss something and then forget about it for ages until I look something up on the web and they're like, "Well, just do this," and I'm like, "Oh, forgot you could do that."
Yeah, this
So
is one
yeah,
of those games for
this is
sure.
one of
Yeah.
those games. Yeah,
Well, I mean, a little bit before I get back to the book, a little bit on that as it relates to the hanging and just the ledges and edges in general. Another tidbit that I was really impressed with, which I'm interested how the rope thing works for this, but um, because like we talked about last week, which I very much have employed now, is like always be carrying even like pots. I'm like, I won't smash the pot now. I'll just pick the pot up
Right.
and bring it with me, and like and also I didn't know whatever you're holding at the end of the level you bring with you. So I'm
Almost
like,
all things, yeah. Some
yeah,
don't.
so that was like I was carrying this pot, I was like,
You
oh, I'm
can't
trying to
carry
just
a chest in a
through to the
even
next,
an
yeah.
open chest. It will drop, which is weird because I'm not sure why the chest. Well, I guess it's because of the special chest with the golden path. So that's one thing that's inconsistent. Although you can carry the key. The other is a torch. Although you can carry the torch will go out um,
Oh, funny.
when
How
you leave the
funny.
dark level, and
Yeah.
you'll show up at the next level. You'll just have a piece of wood in your hand.
Well, specifically what I was going to talk about is the losing your balance on the edge if you stand
Oh
too
yeah,
close to it.
yeah.
Because carrying is so important in the game, and I didn't know this until the
Till you
last
start
session I
carrying all the
played.
time.
Carrying all the time, and I'm
Yeah,
like, and I wasn't worried about standing on edges up until that point, and now, and there was something funny that I was carrying, obviously something that caused a bad thing to happen afterwards,
probably
but
a pot and a spider came out of it.
probably, yeah, exactly. I think it would totally, well, that's what it was, and it just caused this chain reaction. And the only thing that happened was I stood too close to the edge, and I was like, "Whoa!" And
Whoa.
I dropped the pot.
Yeah,
And but it's such a brilliant addition, and really one of those things where you're like, it doesn't sound like an important feature, and you can totally see it getting cut,
yeah,
but because of the importance of carrying things in this game, it actually is a really important feature,
yeah, yeah,
and a subtle one where you're like, wow, that is some freaking polish,
yeah. And
to
it also
put into
leads
the
to a
game.
lot of comedy. You know.
Oh my god, it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
I mean,
I had the
you
same.
already found one. You know, dropping a pot, having something come out of it that's dangerous, immediately dangerous if it were a spider. You know, if it didn't fall very far, and now, oops,
Yeah.
now a spider has jumped back into your square because you were sitting there going, "What did it just happen? Oh no!"
Yeah, exactly. Before you know it, and
Yeah.
I've had the same problem with the damsel a couple times too, where I'm like, I
Oh yeah.
drop her as
Whoops.
she's
Onto the
asleep, and it's like,
spikes.
yep, oh, okay, well, there goes that. Anyway, yeah, so that was so yeah, for on the book though, so yeah, I've only read the first section, so quarter, third, but the what I'm happy, I'll keep reading it, of course, but what I'm happy that we can talk about in that section is that it really, he does a great job. Again, shout out to Artimage for the copy of the book. Very generous. He really lays out, um, in ways that you don't often get. So I've actually never read this series of books,
Yeah.
and I saw that Nick Suttner did one on Shadow of the Colossus. So
Yep.
I'm interested. I
And
probably should go.
we interviewed Sebastian Deken, who did the
Yes,
Final
right.
Fantasy VI book about the music.
Yeah, right, right. And so I did remember that. So I should read Sebastian's. I should read Nick's because I like Nick's work a lot, and I like Shadow a lot, as you know. So
Oh yeah.
this reading this one, I'm like, okay, I really missed out on these. But anyway, it's really nice to hear him because he really goes back to Aquaria. What's the name of that game?
Aquaria, yeah, is the prior.
Aquaria.
Yeah.
He brings us through the whole journey in the beginning, and he talks about, the in roguelike con or whatever that convention is where they're trying to define what a roguelike is. He brings us through his rationale and logic of how he came upon the merger of the genres in this particular game, Spelunky, some of his failures on that journey, why he chose not to make another Aquaria and do something else, and it's really fun because you can kind of really, because we can play Spelunky now, obviously with any book, that any content that's looking backward, documentary, whatever, it's nice to see, it's commenting on something that is likely happened or is happening, so you can reverse engineer it there. He talks about, he has a comparison to Dwarf Fortress, which I thought Artimage would like too, because I think that's also one of his favorites, as with Spelunky. And I didn't, it's true that that is another weird rogue-like game, but it didn't dawn on me until
Well, it's because
until he
the runs are so long.
exactly, yeah. It's but he was talking about he was equating the original Rogue and ASCII with the original Dwarf Fortress, and so there were
Right,
some really
right.
good like connection points there. But some of the influences, my point is, some of the influences that he was bringing up. He obviously brought up NetHack and some of those, and he told some great examples. So I really recommend people who are at all interested in game development, but especially this game, to read it. Again, it's not long, as you said, but his influences were, some of them like Dwarf Fortress were surprising to me, but really like made sense after he explained why. And there's a lot of other just like thought process stuff in there, like the way he talked about puzzle pieces and people, people's lives and puzzle pieces and putting pieces together. He talked about the Berlin interpretation.
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Like,
forgot about that. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, God.
And then I actually didn't write the attributes down, but if you do read it, seek out the section where he talks about the 3 attributes of the game that it's basically his pillars that he was going to try to go after when making Spelunky. Like it had to be this, it had to be this, it had to be this, and it really made a lot of sense. But the most important thing, which I thought was fun, and it relates back to one of my takeaways that I'll talk about, and I already teased as well, is the consistent rule set that he was trying to go after, which might have been one of the attributes he was looking for. And he gave the example of like, I'm going to butcher it, but it's roughly like in most games in the space, especially any adventure kind of game, and even platformers, it's like, you code weapons separately from monsters, separately from character, and they're all kind of their own separate thing. It might still be a sandbox, they might have interactions, but they're all seen as their own entity types or what have you. And he, his really like seemingly in the book at least resolute goal on making sure that all things had consistent rule sets, which we've talked a lot about on this mini series. And he gave the example of like, why can't I pick up and kick a monster?
Right.
Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like simple. I can pick up a weapon and I can throw the
I
weapon,
can
or I
kick
can,
a ball, but I can't. Yeah.
yeah. So it's like this concept of like, no, just let them do that, because it's a consistent thing. And then my point last time about like watching the Polaroid after you die is the best, I think, still for me, the distilled example of his success there, because you don't even have to be playing, and you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
see all the consistency that is just so darn rare. I feel like in games where it's this darn consistent,
yeah,
and I love that he wanted to pick up and kick a monster.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's been fun read so far. I wish I'd finished it in time, but I'm looking forward to reading more.
Cool. Yeah. Well, there's a couple things you'll read about, so I'm going to spoil them here,
Yeah,
so
you
that
go
they
for it.
might inform your future play. But I also I'll put in a stinger here to just let people know where to skip to if they want to skip straight to the takeaways if they don't want to be spoiled on some secrets of Spelunky. Hello, Brett here. If you would like to avoid any Spelunky spoilers, skip ahead to around 59:05. If you hear music, you're fine. We're going into the takeaways. And that would have happened there. Okay, so the first thing is that last time I think I mentioned, think about what else you could sacrifice on the altar.
Right.
This is a pretty minor secret, but there's a pretty powerful item you can get from doing so. And that is if you twice sacrifice a living damsel, or
Of course.
damn whatever, you will get this skull cup that collects blood from other enemies you kill.
Wow.
And every time the cup is filled, you get another heart.
Wow.
So that is a huge helper. Like
That is
that is another
huge.
thing where I prioritize doing that, even if it will consume a fair amount of resources to do, because it's the opportunity doesn't happen every day, for that, and it really really strengthens your ability to win the game, to be able to do that. So I'm like giving up the immediacy of like the one heart from the damsel, and of course one of the things I've mentioned previously is like you can sacrifice dead bodies on the altar, but you can also sacrifice living bodies on there. So if you can jump on a caveman, or if you can whip a flower, the Venus flytrap flower, or even a shopkeeper, and while it's still unconscious, you can put it on the altar, or the guys who throw the boomerangs. You can also get more from sacrificing something alive to Kali than you get from sacrificing something dead.
Oh, you only have to put the unconscious one on there, or you have to put it on there and then also kill it?
No, you just put it on there and it
Oh,
disappears.
okay.
It's
Okay.
just because basically that's what's happening with the damsel. If they're conscious, like I've had this weird thing happen where I go to put the damsel down and it spontaneously wakes up. So it's like the timing was perfect that the damsel woke back up, um, just as I was putting it down, which is really weird, thing that it's a timing thing. I don't know how it happens, but and they wouldn't disappear, and Kali wouldn't be pleased by my sacrifice. So anyway, that's one thing. There's another thing that you can sacrifice that I'll let you discover on your own someday. But the bigger secret, and this is a pretty big, and I'm only going to tell you about this because you wouldn't discover it on your own, or it would take a long time probably to find, and B, he discusses it late in the book, is that of the golden path that I've been teasing about for a while. There is a series of things that takes you through the game to where if you get to Olmec, if you defeat Olmec in a particular spot, you can actually find a doorway to the underworld, and there's a separate set of levels and final boss there called Emperor Yama. Those are the hell levels. There's 4 of those. So here's the series of steps. First, in the mines, you have to find the level that has the golden key and the chest, the locked chest. It's guaranteed to happen sometime between mines level 2 and 4. It could be in any one of those 3. It's never in 1-1. And that gets you this eye. It's not the Wadjet eye, but it's something similar. It's like the Udget eye or something like that. But it's this eye. And one of the benefits, and this one, it took me a while to figure out what was going on with this eye. I did eventually get this one. But the eye, not only does it, like the sunglasses, reveal like gems and hidden objects in the walls.
Oh, that's how that worked, because I had it, but I didn't have the sunglasses. And I was like,
No,
why am I seeing these gems?
Yeah, that's right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like one use. And you're like, cool. Well, it has a second use, and that's in the jungle. In the jungle, in one of the jungle levels, and I think it could be any of the 4, pretty sure. There will be a spot in one of those levels near which that eye icon on your screen, up in the upper left or upper right, depending on which layout you use, it will blink.
Oh.
And it will blink more rapidly the closer you get to a hidden square. I mean, it's hidden in the sense as it's always behind terrain. So you always have to be able to bomb your way to it or dig your way to it with the pickaxe. And if you get to that square that's at the central of this sort of radar range of this object, it opens a secret door to the next level. But that to the next level,
next jungle level.
Well, it's not the next jungle level. It's the black market.
Oh, no.
So there's the black market. The black market has 7 shopkeepers in it, and they are selling gear. One of them is a prize guy, and the others could be anything else. They could be the damsel. They could be, helpful objects. They could be weapons, bombs and guns and things. Could be any of those things. There's 6 that's kind of like 3 stacked, and then at the bottom there's nothing. It's just the exit is down at the very bottom. And then the 7th shopkeeper is selling a special object, which is this golden ankh, the Egyptian symbol with the loop on top of the cross.
Yep.
The golden ankh costs a lot of gold. It's like 50,000 or 100,000, which is why you never buy the ankh. You just anger the shopkeepers and then kill them all on this level. That is how
That's the
one
method.
that's how one plays Spelunky when you've been playing for a while. So typically you've got more than a dozen bombs at that point. You'll chip away some space, so that when the shopkeepers come out, they're going to fall into a deeper hole and things like. I mean, there's a whole series of things that I do every time. Okay, so once you have the ankh, that's the next part of the path. Then in the ice caves on level 2 or 3 of the ice cave, so never 1 or 4, but 2 or 3, there will be a tiki head, a big, it's 3 or 4 squares tall and like 3 squares wide. So I think it's 3 by 4, 3 wide and 4 high. Tiki head statue will be in one of those 2 levels. In that level, you must die, and the golden ankh will resurrect you inside the tiki head.
What?
A door will open, a special door in the tiki head will open, and a special helmet will drop on your head. I forget what that. It's not really a helmet. It's like a hat or something like that. Okay, so that's the next step of the path.
Wow.
After that, you go soon to the ruins. In the ruins, always on the first level, there is a special, like Egyptian style god. Like he's got like a dog head, or some kind of animal head, and he flies. He's like 4 squares big, and he flies, and he has this basically wand, which also has kind of like a fancy head on it, a rod or wand or whatever, that fires these like plasma balls. They're pretty slow moving, so you don't have to worry too much about them, but you can't, if you're touched by one, you're dead. So you have to avoid that. If you kill him, typically with a couple of, either shotgun blasts if you've managed to keep a shotgun from the black market, or which of course you probably don't have, because you had to, when you die you lose, if you're carrying something you lose it. So when you die and are resurrected, so you lose what you're carrying. You still keep other things like your boots and whatever, your jetpack if you have one, but you don't get to keep your shotgun. You destroy this guy and he drops the wand. You take that, you can use it. It's now a weapon you can use, like the shotgun. You take it down to the next level, so the second level of the ruins, and somewhere in the ruin, that floor, there will be a golden locked door, which is a separate exit from the level than the normal exit, and you use that basically as a key to unlock that door.
Does that door appear normally, or only?
I think it always appears on the second level. It's just you have no way to deal with it if you don't have this wand, right?
But it would have been a clue if you'd seen it, like, oh, what's that?
You might look at it and think, I wonder how I deal with that. But he won't drop the wand if you don't have the
hat.
Jeez. And then if you haven't gone through that, the final level of the ruins, rather, is the City of Gold. If you haven't gone through this gold door, then there's an item that won't appear there. But if you have, the item that appears in the City of Gold is this book, which is the Necronomicon.
Nice.
I think it's actually called the Necronomicon, but I always think of it as the Necronomicon, regardless of what it's called. But anyway, there's a book, and it's in the very center of the level. This is one level. There are a few levels where there's kind of a fixed thing. Like the black market is pretty much one layout, and then there's some sort of incidentals on the sides, but the center is always the same. And this is one where it's like, the very center of this level, the City of Gold, is this area where the book appears, but if you haven't got there in a special way, there's no book. Okay. When you get the book, a special enemy appears, which you can kill here or on the next level, which is Almec. He's just
that's how you get the boss.
This is how you're going to get
in this case.
Right. You don't need to get this book to get to Almec. You can just exit the normal way. If you don't have the book, you just go to Almec, and you can just win the game after the 16 levels, and not get the special bonus for having gone to hell. So if you have the book, however, you go, and the way you defeat, well, I won't tell you how you defeat Almec, because you'll have to figure that out for yourself. But it will tell you, importantly, where to defeat Almec if you have the book. Because the book, its icon on the screen, basically it has the face on it, right? Because it's the Necronomicon that Ash gets his finger stuck in. There's actually an Ash reference in the... there can be an Ash reference in other levels in the game as well, where there's... if you've ever had an undead level appear, there is one grave, you see the gravestones, that has they all say RIP, except for one. There's always one that says Ash. If you bomb that and the square beneath it, there's always a shotgun in the square beneath Ash.
Oh my God, are you serious? That's incredible.
So it's another, so that's why I'm pretty sure it's the Necronomicon, even though I never look. So anyway, the Necronomicon, by its face animating faster and faster, will tell you exactly where to defeat Almec. If you defeat Almec in that location, it will, by Almec being defeated there, will show another door you can go through that takes you to hell. And so that's the golden path, and then you're in hell, and there is a special item there, but as I think I mentioned previously, it's not required to win. It just makes it makes some of the risks a little easier to deal with in hell. It's a kind of risk reward. You may not need it. You may be really glad you had it. I don't know. I almost never need it, but I always do it anyway, just in case. Because
for the daily, does the daily to like quote unquote win a daily, do you have to do all 5 worlds?
Because it's just a leaderboard, it's up to you, but I don't consider myself having defeated the daily without having gone to hell and defeated the final boss.
But to get a turkey, you have to go the final boss 3 times.
Yeah, 3 days in a row.
Jeez.
So you have to do all those steps. I always do as many steps, as I get through. I never skip a step. It's never that I get to the end and I'm like, oh, I failed. Usually if I fail at any step, I just quit the daily for that day, because I'm like, oh, no turkey this week. I just stop there. I'm like, oh, okay, well, no more here. Which is just how I play. But so other people play that they'll just try to beat the game normally at that point. Because typically, and this is one of the steps I didn't figure out on my own, was that, well, when I got the Ankh in the black market, I was like, oh, cool. Once I discovered what it did, I was like, oh, cool. It's like having an extra life. You get 4 more hearts. And I was like, oh, that's a really cool bonus. You definitely want to do that. And I did not realize, like, if you do that at a special point, and I probably would have accidentally discovered that at some point. Inevitably, I would have died in the right level in the ice caves, that I was like, wait a minute, what just happened? So, and the first time that I got into that tiki head was the time where I started jamming the button really fast to exit the level. And I exited the level before the hat fell on my head, because it actually drops down into position. It's like it comes out of.
Oh, that's what you were alluding.
That's what I was alluding to previously. So that was a fairly long-winded. People are going to be like, you have to skip how many minutes? But that's
amazing. That's
it's
really
extraordinary.
Cool.
It is extraordinary.
Well, the thing I like about it,
I love the game so much, is that it has this hidden thing. Which I know, now I've of course spoiled for you, but I know is like the sort of thing where you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
It's been here the whole time. It's sort of like when you open up the connection between, I forget the name of the areas in Dark Souls, but it's like, wait a minute, those doors go to this place, and you're just like, no way,
Those are so cool, those moments. Yeah, it's totally,
That's one of the things Dark Souls 2 really,
it really didn't.
Yeah.
I'm at the final couple bosses, and yeah, it didn't. The fast travel ruined. It's nice to have it, but it
Yeah,
ruined
yeah.
that
That definitely
game's
ruins
world
that
design.
aspect. Yeah.
Yeah. Um. Uh. Yeah, that's cool. One thing I like about it, but I think in almost every case there is, if you're playing normally, there is something out of the ordinary that you would at least have some clue that something is up.
Right.
It
Yeah.
sounds like, because like
Yeah.
the gold
Eventually you'd
boar,
run into it.
the
Yeah.
tiki head, and the thing is like, why is this one big tiki head here?
Yeah, exactly.
And then you're like, oh, what's up with that?
The one that's hardest to spot is the first step after you get the eye,
Yeah, the right
where it
noticing.
ticks, it kind of blinks, and it blinks more. If that tile happens to be otherwise exposed, meaning that some adjacent tile is open, you can actually spot that it's different, that the tile under that is different, the block tile, the hidden
Mm,
tile,
mm,
because it's got special greenery around that exit. Um, and
mm.
so and it's theoretically possible sometimes to actually be able to see it without the eye, but I would never bother to try because it's pretty rare that
Yeah,
happens.
yeah.
It just happens to have the exit has background around it that spreads into adjacent tiles above and to
Right,
the
I get.
side of it.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, yeah. It's like an exit.
Like
If you
exits
bomb
do.
an exit, there's a
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
There's that
Same thing.
ledge
Yep, yep.
that is. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you could theoretically find that on your own. And I might have actually it's been so long since, like, I might have actually found that without the eye, found the black market without the eye first and not
Can
known.
you go through if you?
Yeah, you can. Yep, yep. That is the one step you can actually do without having found the item.
Okay, okay.
All the
Yeah,
other
but
steps
it's got to
it's
be so
required.
hard.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it's playing a lot of. I was playing a lot of Spelunky at that time on the Vita, um, and I think so I didn't spot it. I think I just was bombing to get to something else, and an exit appeared, and I was like, "What?" There are some other things to be aware of. I don't know that he talks about this in the book. I don't remember, but there are special exits to some of the areas where you can go to like a special variant level that has its own. I mean, it still works on the same rules, but it's like a single level that has a different sort of wind
Really?
condition. Yeah, yeah. And I don't in the jungle, if you have an undead level in the jungle, there's like a cairn or something that is built up. I've never done these other levels. I've seen them played, but since I'm always just playing the daily, I normally don't go that direction. And then I think there's some other level where there's a flower that if you get stuck into it and don't jump out of it soon enough, you'll get sucked into a variant level as well. I don't know if there's one for the ruins. I don't think so, but I could be wrong.
Wow.
So those are some of the secrets of Spelunky.
I mean, it feels like kind of on the scale of New Game Plus for Fez.
Yeah,
Like
right.
there's this
Oh
whole
man, yeah.
other thing
That's another
happens,
good
and you're like,
example. That's another good
yeah,
example of like, wait, what?
yeah.
Kind of moment,
Mm-hmm.
for sure. I'm going to suggest we take a quick break because we're at an hour before we go to takeaways. How's that work for you?
Sounds good.
Welcome back from the break. We are at the end of a series within a series this week, where we're doing takeaways, not just for this game, but for the game prior, which they don't necessarily bear a huge amount of resemblance. They have some, right? They're both 2D. They're both by very small teams. One creator versus basically two creators. I mean, there's also music in the case of Spelunky, so I guess three. I don't know if he was a full team member or contract. I don't recall. Not that it matters. He contributed to the game as well. But really, really small teams. And they do sort of have the platforming in them, to some degree, but they're very different takes, much like our walking simulators were pretty different takes. So that's I had to remind you a little bit in the break. Okay, by the way.
Yep, you definitely did.
But as usual, I will throw to you, sir, for your first takeaway.
Yeah, my first one actually really, it does relate to both, I think. In kind of retrospect, and I kind of during the break morphed it into make sure that it did do that, because I did forget about Cave Story. But so mine are kind of, other than this one, they're the other two are more Spelunky focused. But for Cave Story and Spelunky, and especially Cave Story, I think like a takeaway, especially for the indie game series within these sort of subgenres, they had such the freedom to go beyond the genre that they have been tagged with, if that makes sense. So in Cave Stories, case, yes, Metroidvania, yes, there are platforming elements, some really common things about it that you would find in other games, but he was able to really do his own thing. There was more story, more characters, more elements to it that you wouldn't find in Metroid or even Castlevania. More thoughtfulness to that kind of stuff, and I assume my impression from playing is that the freedom of being a solo developer or small team and being independent, seemed to allow them to kind of make the game they wanted to make in a way, right? Versus, oh my gosh, our market research says you're a Metroidvania, so you have to have this, 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 and this, and you got to not have this, this, and this. But it's like, no, like Cave Story felt like a real passion project that had an identity. There's a little bit of RPG-ishness in there sometimes, JRPG feel to it. So I really appreciated that about it. And then similarly to same thing with Spelunky, right? It's like, yes, you can tag it with platformer, roguelike, and these, certain elements, and there are certain preconceived notions. And he talks about this in the book too, about like, the committee, the roguelike committee of the universe trying to decide what defines a roguelike. And that was he makes the point that that was at a time when that was unclear. But since then,
I'm sure there are people on the internet who were very clear on it, Tim.
Yeah, well, that's the point, is that they did become very clear on it. And I think his point in the book was like, obviously, my game doesn't check these boxes.
Right, yeah.
Like one of the rules was turn-based.
Yeah, right.
And it was like, really? Oh my gosh. So maybe that's where they come up with other terms like roguelites and lights,
exactly.
Anyway, long story short, like, these games had the freedom to go beyond their genres, both of them. And I really appreciated to play them because of that, because I definitely myself get stuck in those genre rules sometimes too much.
Yeah, that segues really nicely into my first one, which was, the sort of personality that comes through in these games, totally. And I really, because the teams are so small, one person, 2 to 3 people, and I think the voice of the creators comes through so strongly. Like you're talking about those like roguelite platformer, like only Derek Yu comes up with this roguelite platformer, right? I mean, we've seen other roguelite platformers, I guess. I mean, maybe Dead Cells qualifies, I don't know. I haven't played that game enough to know. I don't remember that.
I mean, it's more, it's more combat-y than platformer-y.
Right, sure. That's fair. But that is a real, like, you can imagine, the universe of games that these people might want to play in, and both because of their specific influences, certainly come through Cave Story, in a very deep way. I mean, I think they're maybe less obvious to me, other than having read the book. If I just were sat down with Spelunky, having no knowledge, I don't remember being like, oh, this is like this game. I would not have, I mean, at the time, I would not have been thinking Rogue, anything, because it wasn't a genre I played much. I would have been thinking procedural generation, and it would have been like, well, what's that? What have I played? But I do think that the aesthetics and the, what's important to, each of them really kind of comes through. And with Daisuke Amaya, I think it's really like the heart, and like that's a guy who played and loved Earthbound, a guy who played and loved a lot of like SNES 16-bit titles, probably, that had a lot of like, even like Pokemon, with its kind of
Oh, totally.
personality, and the professor, or whatever these characters you would meet, who had these feelings to them. Even though it's not a game that's very much like Pokemon itself, it has some of that aesthetic that comes, I think, mostly from NES and SNES and Game Boy, I guess, in the case of Pokemon. So that's my first takeaway, is one of the things I really appreciate about being in an era where we are sort of way more technologically free to make what we want. Because a lot of early games were individual creators, and it's probably still true that their personality came through, but the technical constraints that they were working under limited that expression in a way that I don't think is necessarily true anymore. So their personalities maybe were harder to pick out, unless you really, really played a lot of games and in depth and knew who the creators were all the time. But now I think, small teams, indie teams can really distinguish themselves by putting themselves in the product. And I think that's why it's art.
Yep.
So back over to you, sir.
Yeah. So this one, my other two are largely Spelunky focused. Full admission, but the first one here is, or the second one really is consistent rules to an extreme, and it comes from what I had mentioned that he talks about in the book as a goal, but I think that it will also relate to my third takeaway later too. But just there, I just have such an appreciation, and it wasn't like Cave Story was inconsistent. It's just the point I made earlier about being able to kick a monster and throw a monster, or whatever, right? Like, is the distilled down version of that. And
anything you're carrying when you come up to an edge will drop.
Yeah, exactly. And he made such a conscious effort, and then he and the team, and then consistently executed on that. That is admirable. And I think we tend to make sandboxy games ourselves, and I have always really prioritized that as a goal too. But there's always, when the kinds of things we make, there also is, like, not everything is that consistent.
Yeah.
It is consistent generally, I think, from a player perspective, but it's just really admirable for them to go this far with it. So that's a big takeaway for me, of like, oh yeah, no, it can be done. You can actually do this completely 100%.
Yeah. I mean, I think, my next one does tie into that in a way. Both of my next ones kind of tie into that in different ways. But it really actually further extends the personality aspect, and that's the saying yes, because I think both of these are games that say yes a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
They just say yes in different ways, and again, that refers to the creators and kind of what's important to them. Daisuke Amaya says yes to things that deepen the heart of the game, I think, in most cases, right? I think that's the real, if you were to really look at a lot of things where it's like, oh, and now it's a little sequence where this happens, it's those sorts of things where you're like, well, why not? It's his game, put in whatever he wants. But I think in most cases, those are deepening his character and story stuff that he's interested in doing, and making the game more emotional as a result. And with Derek Yu, and again, it's not just Derek Yu. I keep trying not to say that, but mossmouth will say, is he's saying, yeah, he's sort of saying yes, but but it has to fit in with all these rules that I have in mind. And once he had kind of figured out what those rules were, I think they really said yes to a lot of different sorts of items that fit into that. And so like the camera is like, oh yes, because it does this thing, and it's a carried, it's like a weapon, it does all the other things. The teleporter is like, yes, okay, yes, that fits into my rules. It's an object you can carry, but you can also teleport through space. Because it's an object you can carry, it has multiple uses, because you can also use it to you know to have traps go off and things like that, like the arrow traps or whatever. Any item you carry kind of automatically fits into one category of things you can do with it, etc. So I feel like um, the reason behind why you say yes or no is like maybe another exploration of personality, but I think it is notable that both games say yes to an awful lot, despite being very small teams, tiny
Yeah.
teams. So
Yeah, and I think that once to that one, once they had mossmouth had a consistent rule set, once you have those, call them pillars, whatever you end up calling them, if you abide by them, you can still say yes to most anything you want to do
yeah,
if once you have them, because you know what they are, right? The example I would come back to that I gave earlier is the fall, losing your balance on a ledge. Like that's a
yeah,
very yes, like that's an
yeah,
easily
right,
cut
exactly,
feature,
yeah,
but
yep,
that's a very yes addition to, oh yeah, that really is going to make some fun stuff to happen. Not necessary at all, but it fits within the rule set, and it's kind of an amazing attention to detail.
yeah. I
So
mean, even
so
the daily is a yes feature.
yeah, yeah,
And it came along late. It came along
right,
after
right. And you said he had to,
after the XBLA version was done, and he had to rewrite a ton of his algorithm, for his generation algorithm to accommodate it. So
yeah.
that was an expensive yes, to that point. But I don't. I mean, he'll talk about it in the book, so you can remind me once if you get to that point, um, of like whether he thought that was going to pay off to the degree that it did, because I really think that took the game into the kind of stratosphere about people talking about it, because it gave the point of comparison, as you were pointing about it
And
talking
people
about
are still
earlier.
playing it. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it's like the fact that people are
a
still
couple hundred of
playing this
us.
game. Yeah, that's still, yeah, still something. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So my final one is embracing the purity of a roguelike, and the trust that will give the player. And I will use physics specifically as the best example in this game, because it's the easiest example, in that because everything abides by and that's why I said this one goes with the previous one, because everything abides by rules, and he embraced the procedural sort of rogue nature, but obviously different subgenre of platformer. Um, Something like physics or something like those rules, because they're so consistent, when things go badly, the player is trusting and forgiving, more importantly, what has happened because of the decision to be so pure about it. And he talks about that in the book too, of like, why rogue, right? Why was that important to the sort of vision of how this game came to be? And he goes through it in more detail, but it for me at least, and I think I mentioned this on last episode or one of the episodes, where it's like, I'm not a big platformer fan, but because of the way this one was built, and because it's such a sandboxy one, and because there's so much as a player I can forgive, because it's, you just never know what's going to happen. It's not like Super Mario Brothers 1-1, um, that I don't mind failure, and I trust the game, um, because of the chaos of it all, and so the purity of that and the embracing of that he really did strive for, that also is only really possible because he's so consistent with my previous takeaway of consistent rules. Yeah, that's a big one for me. And it's like, I don't hate myself as much when I
Yeah.
play, because it's like in Mario
I mean, I
games, it's
fail
like,
at it all the time. I fail at
yeah,
Spelunky all the time, and I don't hate myself for it. So,
yeah, you're just like, yeah,
yep.
well, that's
Well, I mean,
it's
it's like hating yourself for solitaire. Well, it's just it's the way the shuffle worked out today.
right.
All right, yeah, my final one. Then I just said, the amount of depth they were able to get
Yeah,
in simple ways. I mean, one, I think it ties in a little bit to the sort of multiple use of the multiple uses and the consistent rules of Spelunky lead to an actual ton of depth. And part of that is the saying yes. So these are part of a package as well. It's like, well, it's not just that the rules are consistent. It's that there's a lot of things that they're consistent over, which adds to this depth. And you can sort of like, even though I would never like pick constraints for myself playing Spelunky, there are still times where I'm like, yeah, I beat it and I only had the glove and the cape, right? And I was, very happy about that because that's more difficult than if you have the jetpack, or whatever. Or I didn't have the baseball mitt, which makes certain things, harder or whatever. And that depth just means, I mean, that I can be playing it for 1,200 hours, or whatever it is. And, that's unusual. And with Cave Story, although it's not a game where I think the depth is, I've now played it twice. It's not a game I'm going to play a third time, likely. I do think that the weapon system in particular there led to a lot of like interesting depth during play that made it way more exciting
yeah,
than it would have been without that system, and that basically led, I mean, some of the enemies, you know, were better for different weapons than others. That's a cool use of depth as well. And then that's a more sort of simple, like, oh, I have a weapon that it really handles X well. Like there was a weapon that sort of like threw its projectiles along the ground, so that was good for certain things or whatever. But really, when you're in this sort of more protracted, more difficult fights, when you're like, oh man, I took damage and therefore this weapon went down. So
hmm
what do I do now? Do I like, you mentioned it, like, do I keep at it with this thing or do I switch to another one that I'm not as good with, and like, or whatever, that I don't think it will work as effectively. And then hope that it'll drop some power orbs or whatever they are so that I can power that weapon I like up again. That really made, especially the final bosses, for me, particularly challenging and interesting, and a constant tension, though it happened to other places in the game as well. So I do think that depth is a really big thing, and a big part of what made that game really enjoyable for me. And
yeah,
that's something actually I remembered, because because I had a really frustrating finish to that game the first time I played. I was like, oh, yeah, and now playing it again, I was like, man, why do I not remember this? Because this was a really, really good aspect of this game that just faded. And this time, um, relying on that, planning for it, even though sometimes it meant I was standing in place for a while to try to get enough drops to have it work, which, that's just me making the game feel bad for myself, I guess. But that depth, I think, was really made the final battle, and I did beat it, like a really tenuous but kind of gripping experience, in a way that didn't frustrate me as much. It still frustrated me, but not in the same ways, I guess.
yeah. That weapon
That,
system is very special. Yeah,
yeah,
I
it's
was
very
really,
cool. Yeah.
really surprised about that.
And I'm sure it has appeared elsewhere, and maybe people know. I'd love to hear an email if they know of other like up and down weapon systems like that. Where you power them up, but you can lose that power quickly. By being hit. It may be just because I'm not a NES kid. Like there may have been a game where that was a big part of it. That was more of a shooter or something like that. That I don't know. Well, this is obviously it's a platformer kind of shooter, but anyway, just some thoughts there. There probably is one, and I just am not aware of it just because of my
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't.
my
I'd be
lack of knowledge.
interested to hear too.
Yeah. So if people know the precedents there, that'd be cool. If they're out there. All right. Any honorable mentions on the takeaways? Are you good to go, sir? Sorry, I get the hiccups here.
No, my honorable mention that I deleted when I forgot about Cave Story.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, see,
That
I'm giving
was
you some space for
specifically
that.
for
Yeah.
Spelunky. Yeah, it was more just like I'm also really appreciated with the discipline that mossmouth had for the bite-sized nature of it, because I
Mhm.
think for me that's pretty key as well, that the levels are short, that though hard, obviously I haven't finished a full run ever. Um, the overall game is short, and so it's like, if it were more protracted levels, I think they hit the sweet spot for the level size and the time limit and everything like perfectly, because it gives me that bite size aspect of it, gives me that, not just the just one more try feel that I happen,
Mhm.
like I have a hard time stopping you know
Yeah.
when I'm playing. I have to really force myself, because like, oh, okay, just one more time, because it's short, and this might be the run. So but if they hadn't made the levels small and short, I don't think it would have worked. So that was the
Yeah.
one I deleted.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a good point. Yeah, it's very much, yeah, if it was like I'm going to play 4 hours and, 2 hours in I'm going to die, it would not have stuck in rotation for me either. Um I know some people do like games that are like that. But it's not for me.
Well, I think it would have it could have actually forced, maybe there were versions of the game where they did it, but I think it might have forced them to start doing things like save games and like states, or
Right, right, right.
like it started forcing you
It
to
starts
make
diluting,
decisions.
yeah, diluting
Yeah,
the actual core of the game,
right.
and
Like
yeah.
maybe there's an object you can get that saves your state, so if you're 2 hours in, you don't die or something, or you get to start from that point. But yeah, you just start making bad decisions when you
Yeah.
start doing that,
Yeah.
and it takes a lot of discipline, I think, to stick to your guns on that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Because
that's a really good point.
I could
Yeah.
see execs coming to them and saying, "Wait, the whole game is 40 minutes?
Yeah, right.
That's not going to work."
Yeah, well, we
And they're
can't,
like,
yeah.
"We need it to be
Well,
six
I mean,
hours."
especially in these days. Luckily, back then Steam didn't have a return policy, but yeah, but these days.
Yeah, but once you start playing, you realize it's not about that.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a whole different. But
Sure, one game might be 40 minutes, but you're not really going to have that one game where you feel successful until you're several
yeah,
hours in, Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, cool. That is our end of our little series within a series about sort of these 2D platformer kind of around games in the indie space with Cave Story and Spelunky. I will, of course, continue to play Spelunky probably long after this cast is well and done. In the meantime, we'd love to get your email at devgameclub@gmail.com, or we do love to occasionally get a review. It has been like 6 months, 9 months since a kind one. We actually had a very unkind one 6 months ago. I'd love to clean that taste out of my mouth, so if you could go, report us as a 5-star podcast somewhere, we'd love that. If you write something up about it and we don't read it on the air, please send us that way so we know where to find it, or just email it in. We're on the web at devgameclub.com, and my co-host Twitch is at twitch.tv/
Tim Longwood Jr. with the JR at the end.
Are we going to be able to fit it in this week? I suspect no, but
No. This week
able to do it?
I should be back. Yep.
Okay, cool. Because I know last week you were not, so you flushed the cache. You're going to have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, the high energy lab is pretty memorable. So,
Okay.
and I'm on to something. So I think we're talking about Outer Wilds. So I think all the basics, but the details I'll have to refresh.
Okay. Well, I wish you luck. I probably won't be there, but I wish you luck. We have a fan-run Discord. We mention it occasionally. I think we mentioned it earlier in the show. There is a link for that in the show notes. Our intro and outro music was written and performed by Kirk Hamilton, commissioned by friend of the cast, Aaron Evers, and our logo, the Discord, merch store, all of that by Mark Garcia. Have fun making your way through icy rocks suspended over a bottomless abyss this week, and good night.
Good night.